Hey everybody, Clay Mills at the SongTown Studios. Welcome. Today, Emily Shackelton stopped by for a great conversation. Now, you'll know Emily from her hits she's written with artist Carly Pearce. She's had 2 #1 songs. The first one launched Carly's career.
Every little thing, I remember every little thing.
But she's also had a string of mega artists cutting her songs. Let me just read you a few here. Reba McEntire, Guyton, Sara Evans, Cassadee Pope, Seth Ennis, Lauren Alaina, Callista Clark. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I can't wait to share this conversation with you. Let's check out Emily Shackelton. So great having you here today, Emily.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I've heard your name around Nashville for many years. I don't know if we've ever met before. I'm trying to think.
I know. Same. Yeah.
But glad to have you here. And tell me, how does someone growing up in small town Minnesota get interested in music?
Music was part of my first thoughts, I think. Like, I never have a memory without wanting to do music.
Mm-hmm.
Grew up singing in the church with my dad. I think I wrote my first song at 4.
Wow.
Just, a little
What was the name of
Bible verse ditty. I guess He Made Everything. But it was just little Bible verses strung together, and they maybe rhymed. But my dad, I'm from a town of 900 people.
Yeah.
And it was like larger when my parents were growing up. It was maybe 1,200 people. And my dad was the wedding singer, funeral singer, national anthem singer. He was just like the guy. And he learned to play guitar totally by ear. Couldn't read music, but such a musical guy. And so I grew up with his records, Dan Fogelberg, James Taylor, Carole King, Peter, Paul, and Mary. Yes.
Collection to learn from.
Yes, all the folk stars. Yeah. And then my mom, Billy Joel, Elton John, Stevie Wonder, some of those like early, just amazing piano, amazing melody and lyrics. And we only had 2 radio stations that came in growing up. So their record collection was kind of like my exposure.
Right.
And
Which is much different than today, where you can go on YouTube and hear, or Spotify and hear anything you want.
Find anything, right?
I would be so crazy overwhelmed.
I know. It's like, what do you look up? I mean, yeah. I know that there's a formula there, but for me, it's just, what was presented to me, like dinner, like you love what's in front of you. And it made everything that we discovered growing up so much more sweet, right? Because like you don't know what you don't know, and you can either just consume, or you can kind of be served things.
Right.
And be like, oh, I love this, or like, okay, that's not for me. But so that was my growing up. And I think that was so many people's growing up until streaming came along.
Yeah.
And then as my friends and I started, middle school, high school, going to some music festivals, I call it my gateway drug into country music. It was the Dixie Chicks.
Oh, wow.
The Wide Open Spaces record.
Oh, yeah.
And then
Which that was kind of folky, that song.
Right.
Wide Open Spaces.
And just the lyrics were, I think what folk was in the 70s and early 80s is what country became in the way of storytelling.
Right.
And that was just like a love language like I'd never heard before. So Dixie Chicks, Faith Hill, Martina McBride, Jody Messina, Sara Evans, Shadazy, like all
Trisha
of these.
Yearwood.
Trisha Yearwood, Leanne Womack.
Leanne Womack.
I mean, Reba for sure. I I mean, there's just so many Jessica Andrews, you know? It was just
Yeah.
queens forever. And so I thought that, and I'd also been exposed to Lilith Fair on the other side. So no matter what, it was like very female oriented, like feminine, but strong and everything I wanted to write. So that's kind of what I thought the world was. But also I thought that every artist wrote their own songs. And so that's how I grew up. And then I found out about this college called Berkeley. And you could major in songwriting, crazy enough. So I went there, did that, and learned that you actually could be a songwriter without being an artist. I wanted to be an artist, but for whatever reason, I felt like I could stand behind my songs in a way that like didn't feel as exposed as if I was like, here's my voice and my persona as an entertainer. And
so you figured out early on that you preferred the writing part over being the superstar out on stage, kind of.
With writing, it was like I'm sitting behind the piano, I'm feeling my feelings. And even though I thought I wanted to be the entertainer, it suddenly became like, what do I do with my hands? You know what I mean? And so I laid that dream down, and I really, really plugged into the songwriting. Towards the end of my time at Berkeley, my professors were like, you need to move to Nashville. I was like, what's Nashville? I'd always thought it was like Los Angeles or New York, and you know, I was going to be Celine Dion. And discovered Nashville, discovered co-writing.
Mm-hmm. Which a lot of us never really did until we got to Nashville.
I mean, it's a very Nashville thing, right? Yeah. Like, it's not I think it's becoming more universal, but it wasn't until recently. I mean, maybe with the Nashville TV show, people started seeing like what co-writing actually was, and understanding that it's not just artists. But yeah, towards the end of my time at Berkeley, I won this little thing called the John Lennon competition through BMI. Mm-hmm. And through that, I was able to meet a rep here in Nashville named Beth Mason, who's now Beth Laird of Creative Nation. And she just kind of got in my corner and started helping me meet different publishers. And it wasn't until about 11 months in, I had submitted a song to American Idol. Just kind of, it was from a publishing meeting that had gone just like poorly in the way that like it tugged on my heart as like, oh, maybe I'm not meant for here. Oh. And I went home, I wrote this song, and a friend said, you need to submit that song to, it happened to be the year that American Idol was doing the song contest. And David Cook ended up singing my song on the very last competition of the American Idol season that he was on.
I've heard this story a few times where a writer, when they're at their lowest, writes something that opens doors.
It's so crazy, right? I mean, I definitely didn't write it being like, you know, I was definitely like, take that, but also not like, you know, watch me take that. You know, it was really neat how it happened, and not at all how I would have written it, or, you know.
It's like God or the universe is saying to you, like, no, you should be writing songs.
God has always, like, guided my path in a way that it's always not at all like I imagined, and better than I could have imagined. And it's kind of both and of like, well, that didn't go how I thought it was going to go. And a lot of times it, you know, is worse before it gets better. Yeah. But in the end, it's always better, which is really neat. But so from that song on American Idol, which got up to 13 on the Hot 100, which was very, very strange. I was able to sign my first publishing deal with Bug, and then Bug got bought out by BMG.
Of course.
And so that was my first 2 years in Nashville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you got to Nashville. Did you start co-writing right away when you got here, or was the David song, was that a solo write?
Yeah. I had a publisher or a producer that I worked with, very closely with that. But yeah, that was a 100%er. And all of my songs up till then really had been until I signed that first publishing deal. And then I started getting thrown to the sea.
Yes. So for those of you that don't know, when you sign a pub deal in Nashville, they start doing your schedule and they're like, okay, today you're going to write with this person. Tomorrow you're writing with this person. And
yes.
So you're just kind of holding
Trigger
on.
response. Yes. Yes. No, it's so true. And we call it blind dating a lot.
Yeah.
It's like you're feeling your feelings with people you don't know, and you're hoping that it goes well, and you get each other's strengths and weave it all together. But the first, I feel like at least 5 years, if not more, you're just like trying to find your people.
I know, yeah.
If you've gotten that far, you've already found your voice as a writer, as far as, you have something to say. And so I had these songs that I'd written by myself that were grabbing the attention of people, but not to the point where Nashville was like, okay, this is, and it's such a subjective thing anyway, what that is. But through those first several years, you're trying to find your voice all over again, because now you're not the writer, you're the puzzle piece, and you're trying to find the other puzzle pieces that fit, that make it more magical than it even could be on its own.
Yeah, you're trying to see how you can fit your voice into a bigger puzzle and not lose your voice.
And not lose your voice. Yeah, yes, exactly. And of course, there's some songs where it's just going to be you, but there's some songs that it couldn't be without your co-writers, and that's such a special thing. Sting says that it's like, pulling down little nuggets from the universe and being open to the fact that the song is already there. And the more that we can be an open conduit to it and giving instead of holding in, and that's just rung so true to me. My friend Phil Barton, who's an amazing songwriter, he and I met maybe a year into our time in Nashville. We've both been here 17 years.
Wow.
He moved here from Australia. I moved here from Minnesota. And
both have different accents.
We both have very different accents, but we've both taken on the y'all. And we met playing open mic nights, our first couple years in Nashville, and wrote for the first time when we each had our very first baby publishing deals, and are still writing to this day 17 years later. We've gotten umpteen cuts together, and we always joke we've written, I think, over 300 songs together now. It's pretty crazy. Those things don't happen overnight, but really digging into co-writing it's one of those risks where there's going to be so many writes where you're like, well, I'm never going to do that again.
Yeah.
But then there's those few that you're like, I've written with that person since I very first moved to Nashville, and it's only gotten better and deeper and more meaningful over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to back up just a second because I'm always fascinated. I went to Berkeley for a year, and I'm fascinated with people who have gone there, how you interpret whether going to college for music, how did it help you? How did it for me, I felt like I had to unlearn some stuff that I
Sure.
picked up in school. But
Sure.
what was your takeaway from a few years at Berklee?
I totally get where you're coming from. And I feel like that is a very common story that comes from music colleges, because we are steered so strongly towards the fundamentals and the building blocks, where it's like you can't deviate from the rules. For me, never really having a language for these things that I'd always inherently felt like composition and knowing the chords or the solfege or all these different things. It was really sweet to be like, oh, these are my people that understand
Right.
it. And like I said, I didn't know that Nashville existed. I didn't grow up like knowing, I grew up finding out that, the Dixie Chicks and all these queens existed like during my high school years, but I still didn't understand that like there was this place where the music and the writers around the music were congregating, and where it was like iron sharpening iron. So even though it's hard, right? Because for-profit colleges, at some point we all like kind of look back and we're like, come to Nashville and I think you can do just as good as
Right.
like, going into debt for someone to teach you songwriting. But at the same time, I wouldn't have had my start that I did, or
Right.
the people steering me towards what my dream became. So I'm thankful for Berklee. I didn't graduate, but it was enough.
Neither did John Mayer.
Right? Right?
I can name so many
I know.
people that
It does seem
we
like
never
not a lot of
graduated,
people
yeah.
graduate, but it steered me toward what I was meant for.
Yeah.
And which is like one of my favorite quotes is like, you won't miss what you're meant for.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I love that.
I love that. But Berklee was sort of that for me, in that like I could see where some people I was like, oh, like they're taking money that they don't need to take. But for me, I was like, this was money well spent.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So Nashville, you had a hit single. I guess we can call it a hit. It was top 15, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so that launched you. You got a publishing deal. How many years did it take after that for your next bit of success to start happening?
Yeah.
Because people feel like your first success and then it's just all up
Yes.
downhill from there, and,
Yes.
and you've made it. you know?
Yes. My first cut was with an Australian artist, and I wrote it with like two of the best writers of all time. It was Liz Rose and Kyle Jacobs.
Yeah.
And to this day, I think it's earned like $6 maybe in like, pennies and cents. And that was a good like little welcoming into.
Who was the artist?
Oh, this is Nashville. It was an Australian artist. Yep.
I've had a few of those
Yep.
myself. So.
Yep. But it was a lot of those over the years, a lot of almost not quite. I mean, Phil and I and our friend Victoria had like 5 different singles until they weren't, which is, kind of like the MO of songwriters everywhere, where the artist has recorded the song, the label has signed off on the song, and it is literally being shipped to radio, and then something happens, like someone's husband cheats on them, so they don't want to release that song anymore, or
Yeah.
someone gets a bad review about a different song of theirs that's a ballad, so they don't want to put out another ballad. And
I've had that experience of back in the day, going to a record store thinking you were going to buy your albums out today, your songs on there, and then you get there and it's not on there.
Totally. I just had a friend tell me that he had that experience the other day, and it's like, how are we still here? Like, this is like a universal, heartbreak of all songwriters. And it's hard to explain that to people that are like tell me how to make it big, because
Yeah.
you can't, like, the people that are meant to be here, you can't talk them out of being here.
Yeah.
And you feel for them, because we've all been that person where, you know, we want their wide-eyed innocence and their, like, belief that anything can happen, instead of our, like, you know, a bit jaded, like, sure, well, I'll believe it when it's on the radio, you know?
But you're right, it's tough because in order to make your dream happen, you have to move here and try, but not everyone can make it. So, you know, I never want to discourage people, but you have to know it's hard. You have to know you're going to have to work. You're going to have to become a much better writer than you are today. Like, I'm sure you feel like you are 1,000 times better writer than when you first got here.
Yeah, totally. But you couldn't have told me that, like,
Right.
my first year or two in. Like, I was like, no, these songs are amazing.
Yeah.
And, you
We
know,
have
still
to
to
have
this
that-
day, yeah, it's that little bit of, I don't know, imagination, bravado,
Do
somewhere
you
between.
still get excited when you finish a song you're really proud of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those, I hope I feel that way forever. Yeah. One of those very satisfying moments of, okay, I've done what I came here to do.
Yeah. So we're on this journey of almost getting 5 singles. What's the next step that happens?
My time that I really thought was going to happen was when the Nashville TV show came out. And my friends Kelly Archer and Justin Weaver and I found out that we had, like, the lead single by one of the main characters. And of course we thought it was going to be the main good character, you know, the arc hero. And it ended up being Hayden Panettiere's character, Juliet Barnes. And she's, like, shimmying towards the camera in this little, like, dress thing. And, like, she's singing our song. And it switches to Connie Britton's character, Raina James. And she goes, I can't believe people listen to that crap.
Oh, no.
Our song.
And it could have been any song.
Our
Like,
song.
yeah.
Yes.
Like, they would have said that about any song, but not my song. Oh.
Right. So that was, like, my 5-year story. And, you know, I'd told all my friends and family to listen. And it was neat in a lot of ways because it was used in, like, 8 or 9 different episodes the first season.
Yeah.
Gold-selling soundtrack. You know, you laugh all the way to the bank. And the fact that it was, you know, my biggest royalties up to date. But that was the big prize at the end of, you know, 5 years being employed in the music business. And I still love that song. I'm still really thankful for what the Nashville TV show did for Nashville and songwriters, right? Like, I went from having to lay down this dream that just wasn't right for me in performing to suddenly having this career, getting to perform behind the piano, doing exactly what I wanted to do and what was so comfortable to me. And since
it's
then,
like the world realized, hey, these songwriter shows are interesting, and we all started
experience
getting
them in different
booked,
ways.
to play all these shows. I mean, I fly somewhere a couple times a month and
exactly
play a show for new people that have never seen me play, and that I never put 2 and 2 together, but that has to have started happening around the time of the Nashville TV show.
I believe it, yeah. And that was kind of this, like, you know, another one of those God moments where it's like, okay, through this, like, you get to have what you wanted, which was, you know, I was starting to have a family. My husband and I have 2 kids now. And through it all, like, I get to go a couple weekends a month and be the singer-songwriter that goes and plays these beautiful theaters or, you know, really neat places like Sundance and And yet I get to come home and be mom and just write songs during the day. So that was a really neat thing that came from that.
Yeah.
I was pretty burnt out though around year 7, and that was right after we'd had our first child, Benjamin, and I was like, I don't know, I think I'm out of here. And that was right when my friend Busby reached out and was like, hey, if you're around, I think I want to sign you.
So just once again, when you're ready to I'm not sure if I want to do this anymore, something happens.
I actually have never gotten down on my knees to pray except for this one time. And I remember just saying God, take this dream away from me or open a damn door. Yeah. I remember literally those words, side of my bed. And the next morning, Busby's right-hand man, Daniel Lee, had called me and said, hey, how would you feel, doing a joint venture between Busby and Liz Rose? And I was like, well, I mean, that would be amazing, but we'd have to, talk it out between everyone. And he was like, well, actually, we've already talked it out. We're all on board, and we'd like for you to make it happen. And that just became my glory days. Shortly after he signed me, he signed this then unknown singer named Carly Pearce. Mm-hmm. And she'd been a friend of mine for years and years, and she'd gone from having a developmental record deal to cleaning Airbnbs and driving Ubers. And Busby and her and I started writing songs, and it just, none of us knew what was going to happen with it, but it was really neat. Just really neat making music with them. And one of those songs, J.R. Schumann was at the highway, and he said, hey, this is going to be the next highway find. And we were all like, it's a really slow, sparse ballad. And we all know what happens to female ballads.
Just ballads in general.
In general, right? Yeah. In general. But he played it. It jumped to the top of the charts on the highway, which was really neat. Outsold any single that summer on iTunes.
Wow.
Big Machine DM'd her on Instagram, offered her a record deal on Instagram. And she said yes, as long as this song is a single within the next 3 months on terrestrial radio. Wow. And it went number 1 for her and for I.
Which song was this?
It's called Every Little Thing.
Oh, right, of course.
Yes. And it was just really special. Yeah.
And so you've had a couple of number 1s with Carly?
Yeah. So Carly's recorded 10 of my songs, most of which I've written with her, a few I haven't. And yeah, my second number 1 was called What He Didn't Do. And she also recorded that one. And we wrote it with Ashley Gorley, who's,
right,
he's up to 75 number 1s or something stupid like that.
Yes.
So.
They should stop him now.
I mean, just name it the Ashley Gorley Award and let someone else get it.
Well, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much.
Great getting to talk to you and getting to know about your career.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Songtown, take care, and we'll see you soon.